Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.
You're watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and today my guest is not a stranger to Conversations with Jennylyn. It's Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon of Trinidad and Tobago that has made such a huge impact on this show. I could not wait to get him back, and he was gracious enough to consent, so here we are. Archbishop, thank you so much and welcome to Conversations with Jennylyn.
Great to be with you again, Jennylyn. Great to be here.
So everyone loved you who watched our interview, and I got a lot of feedback. And so today, I just wanted to maybe not talk so much about COVID, but just about life with you.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great.
As an Archbishop, how have you seen life changing in Trinidad with Black lives, with COVID, with life?
You know, Trinidad is an intriguing place. When I grew up, we never locked our doors until we were going to bed in the evening. I had no wrought iron on the windows either. And places were neighborhoods where all neighbors acted like neighbors. Today is so different. You have to have wrought iron, you have to have security, you have to have all kind of measures for your safety. And at the same time, the very quality of life has diminished because you don't have that neighborliness anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that neighborliness is really what gives you your security, your happiness, your peace of mind, your joy, so many things. Because it really, people never had excess money, and they never had a lot of things, and they never had a lot of new things. Everybody had hand-me-down from generation to generation. Books, clothes, school bags, everything. But there was an incredible sense of community that we had, and a sense of togetherness, because there were deep relationships. And those deep relationships, that was the source of the happiness, because you knew who you were, because you were in relationship with. And that gave you a sense of identity. Anywhere you went, people would ask two questions: who's your mother and father? Who's your grandmother and grandfather? And before the second question, they'll find some link where they know you. And that gave you identity. And that identity gave you a sense of belonging. And that sense of belonging gave you an inner reservoir of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we've disconnected the relationships and replace them with the things. And the relationships gave us a deep sense of identity. The things don't. And we keep replacing the things with new things, hoping that they will give us something, but they don't give us anything. And so we're chasing this way of living that really has brought us down to a place of despair. There are more pharmacies today than there ever used to be when I was growing up. And everybody seems to need a 24-hour pharmacy for whatever reason they need. And back then, there might have been one pharmacy that if you needed something late at night, you can go and get. Those are all little indicators. The rate of suicide is so, or the thoughts of suicide is so high among our young people. I keep asking myself, why is it that young people who should be so filled with hope are so filled with morbid thoughts and self-destructive thoughts? And that's because there's something fundamental that is missing. And that fundamental, which is missing, is the relationships that ground people's existence. And that the deepest of those relationships was the relationship you had with God. Because everyone in the family knew where the real center was. It was God. And there was no question about it. But now that we're questioning about God, we're questioning about this and that and the other, and there's no depth of relationship, it means that everybody is kind of unmoored and feels as if they're just tossing in a very stormy sea. And therefore, they have no sense of themselves. You can't take possession of yourself until you find someone you can give yourself away to. And that's really where the big challenge is. So how has Trinidad changed over the years? Well, it has changed by moving from deep relationships, a sense of neighborliness, and a sense of neighborhood, to having very shallow relationships, a sense of internet connections, and also a sense of being unrooted. And it has not produced a happier young person. It has actually produced a young person who's far less happy, far more morbid in their thinking, and far more turned in on themselves, and therefore can't find life, because life only comes when you could turn out to another and commit yourself. So those are some really big shifts that we have witnessed in the last while. In a more recent time, COVID gave people a chance to really root back with their relationships. Huh? I mean, if you're locked down and you're locked down with your family, you have no escape. No escape whatsoever.
No.
Like it or not, there you are.
Right. And I think it's forced a lot of people within households to actually get to know each other.
Absolutely.
And that
for better and for worse.
Right. And what's shocking about that is, if you've lived in a house with people for so many years, how come you didn't know who you were living with?
Because, again, we're no longer into relationships. We're into escapism. And in this escapism, people are passing like ships in the night, because everybody's busy about their own thing, but they're not sitting down and eating. I remember when I was growing up, we opened the kitchen door in the morning and we chained our dog and used to sit on the kitchen door, and that door stayed open until night. In the afternoon, because we lived in Woodbrook, a lot of our friends, or a lot of my parents' friends, would pass in on an afternoon because of the traffic in Nigger Martin. And they would always walk with this or that. So you could pass into our house any afternoon and there would be tea going on. Bun and cake and tea and this and that and the next. And people there, you'd swear we had a party every evening. But these relationships really anchored the person and the child. I belong to a family that had very deep external connections. Many children now, when school is finished and they reach home, parents aren't home. Parents are coming in late at night. They're just doing transactional things, but there's no depth of relating. On a weekend, everybody's doing all kinds of things, but there's still no depth of relating. COVID offered us depth of relating. For 3 months, people were locked into one house, one environment, with each other. They had no place to escape from. They had nothing to go and do. They had no excuses. They had nothing anywhere else but to stay right there, face each other, and learn to live with one another. And I think that is an amazing thing. Because it gave a whole other experience to the modern child and the modern family than the modern child is accustomed to having. The modern child is not accustomed to sitting down and having lunch or dinner together. Not even once a week will there be a ritual lunch where you dressed and you came and you talked and you fellowship for an hour or so around a table. That stopped. So COVID has its positive sides, in that it has done these other things.
So, as an Archbishop, what are you most passionate about in your ministry?
So my passion is really about being good news to the poor. That has always been my passion from the earliest call that I felt in the direction of religious life and community and priesthood. And that's a passion because that's at the very epicenter of the gospel message.
Right.
When in Luke's gospel, Jesus said, he took the scroll and he unrolled it and he read from the passage, I've come to bring, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's come to bring good news to the poor, set the captives free, and proclaim this year of favor. The good news to the poor is really about reaching people who are on the periphery and building relationship with them and offering them an alternative to the way they see life and a way to a life that is more grounded in God, in relationship, and in what they're doing. So over the time, or before the COVID time, there's a community, Sealots, where we've been working 4 years. One of the ecclesial movements have been visiting them every month for 4 years. And Sealots is one of our hotspot areas with lots of gang and guns and violence and so on. And we made a decision last year that we were going to set up a school for a trade school for those who had dropped out of the school system. And we've been working on that. So we now have a building, and we by beginning of August, we would get possession of the building and have a big event in the building for the community. On Sunday gone, I was in Sealots community. We put up tents and we had 390 people come out. And we were talking about what their dream for Sealots is. And this is a difficult community. And when they started dreaming for Sealots, words like peace and harmony, togetherness, love, these are some of the things that they want to see in their community, and they're willing to work towards discipline. These are the things that started emerging out of that. And we got them to talk about what they would like to see for the school and what are the kind of areas or disciplines they would like to, and it all came tumbling out. And to see a community which is a community under severe financial challenge, dreaming about the future of their children, that's just precious. It's absolutely precious. And so, that's an important piece. And there are other projects like that where I'm involved, where we're really seeking to give life to communities so that the community themselves can see themselves as regenerating and as finding another way of living.
So I know that there's so many changes, and when you were talking about COVID and how it's forcing people to come together on the outside, it's forcing us to alienate. It's such a contradiction, really.
It's a paradox. It's a real paradox.
It is.
We have to socially distance, but that's forcing people to be self-contained.
Yes. So what do you find the most frustrating about the state of the world today? And as an archbishop who's heading up a complete parish, do you think you can overcome any of those frustrations?
So what's the biggest frustration? The biggest frustration I have is that people believe that life has meaning by what we own, and by what we buy.
Exactly.
And that we can make our life more meaningful if we had more money. There's a certain amount of money you need for your basic necessities. And after that, you still can't live in more than one house. You still can't drive more than one car at a time. You can't eat more than one plate of food at a time. So beyond the necessities, life doesn't, or money doesn't give us meaning. And the way that people have exchanged the tradition of our grandparents for trinkets that are really of very little value today, that's so frustrating, because it just is a lack of wisdom that we can't see that what we engage and the thing that we're spending our whole life after is really not of any deep value to us or to anyone else. You wake up first thing in the morning, you fly out of your bed, you fly out of your house, you're doing high-speed things for the whole day, you crash back in the evening again, and you've not lived yet. You've not enjoyed yourself, you've not lived high pace, one thing after. And why are you doing it? You're doing it because you want a better life. Well, you want a better life, but you're not living the life that you have. So it's not working. It's not working. So it reminds me of this story. I think it was from The Old Man and the Sea, but there's a story of this tourist who went to this place and saw this man fishing, and by 10 o'clock he would come and clean his fish and go about his business. And he said, well, you know, why don't you fish longer? He said, well, what would I do if I fish longer? He said, well, you'd be able to get another boat. And if I got another boat, what would you do? Well, you'd be able to have other people working with you. I said, and if I did that, what would I have? He said, well, you'd be able to take a vacation like me. He said, well, every day I'm able to take a vacation like you. Because every day you want to go fishing, every day I go fishing. Every day at 10 o'clock, I'm finished doing what I'm doing. So it's not understanding the delicate balance between the value of our living, or the real essence of our living, and the lifestyle that we are chasing down. And many times for chasing down the lifestyle, we actually lose the value of our living. Because for chasing the lifestyle, it's always evading us and always pushing us just one place beyond where we are. And so it's just this tension that the modern person is living in that I think is utterly frustrating, because we can't see that it's not bringing us a better life. It's not bringing us happiness. It's not bringing us joy. It's not bringing us more grounded. It's not bringing us to be a better human being. It's not bringing us any form of happiness. It's just this thing that we're doing like a hamster on this rotation, and the treadmill just keeps going and going fast and fast, and we just keep going. I find that is frustrating.
It's keeping up with the Joneses. You have to keep up with the Joneses or you're not cool.
Well, you know, the Joneses are the Joneses, and who say I want to keep up with them?
Right, because you're smart.
I think the Joneses should try and keep up with me.
There you go. See, now you're setting the bar at a new level that we need to all follow. What do you believe will be one of the most significant challenges for the church going forward with all the new norms being set that we have no control of?
So the real challenge, there are multiple challenges that we face. In the full lockdown, people were able to shop around and find the television experience of the Mass that they felt connected to. Now that the lockdown is over, they return to their parish church.
Is there a way to keep both going?
Well, you can.
Okay.
I mean, I'm keeping the Sunday Mass going for a while.
Okay.
People have found it a little difficult to follow all the protocols. And some of the older people have said, you know, when all is settled, this thing, let me know, then I'll come. So there's no big rush for people going back to Mass. And I could see that. And I could see that we'll be in a stage for a while where we'll have less people attending Mass than we used to have. Here in Trinidad, I've said to people, if you can't make the Sunday Mass, go to Mass during the week. And a lot of people have done that. And I think that when it settles, people will go back to the Sunday Mass. But that's one of the big challenges. The fear, the challenge, the protocols, the complexity, and managing all of that. But added to that, you know, we've been moving away from church over a long period of time. And I think that the COVID is going to just push some people off that rail where they used to wake up and go to church because they just used to do it. Now they've been home for a couple of weeks or months, they're probably waking up and saying, well, why did I do that anyway? And that habit is now gone because it's 3 months without the habit. So that's another big challenge. I think the biggest challenge we're going to face is the social fallout of COVID. The world is going to be different.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The way we look back at the Great Depression and talk about that, I think COVID might make the Great Depression look like the Little Depression.
I think so too.
Because it's affecting economic life in fundamental ways across the whole globe. There's nobody going to be left out of this. And so I've seen a list of companies that are strong, big companies that are going bankrupt because of COVID. Now, that's a game changer.
Yes,
It's a huge game changer. And every company that goes bankrupt, you have more people who have lost employment. And that means you have more people now on the margins of society, and more people now that we have to find a way to reach and help and to keep them in some sustainable living so that their dignity can be preserved.
Right.
And so the real big challenge that I am foreseeing is looking at the social fallout, the social economic fallout of COVID that is already coming our way. And I think that is one that we have to understand. So during the pandemic here in Trinidad, before we were giving 4,000 hampers a month, during the pandemic, we went up to 22,000 hampers a month.
Wow.
And we're still high, but coming down over the next 3 months, we're going to come down as people have returned to jobs and normalcy regain. The needs are going to drop off. We think as people get their first, at the end of last month, they got a first paycheck. At the end of this month, they'll get their second, and they'll be able to catch back up with where they were. So that economic fallout is something that we have to keep our eye on, and we have to find a way as church to be our brother's keeper, our brothers and sisters' keeper, and to really find mechanisms to reach to the people who are hurting the most and ensuring that they're getting the care that they need.
That's wonderful, because we do know without a doubt the bar is going to be reset. So there's going to be a new normal, and we can imagine what it is, but I think until it happens, we don't know for sure. But as the Archbishop of your parish, what plans do you have to maintain the goals, the philosophies of the church while you adjust to those new norms? Because at the end of the day, God gave us one set of rules.
Yeah.
And we can't change them just based on what's happening in the world, although we have to make adjustments.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things we're doing in the church in Trinidad is we're pivoting the whole church towards the family.
Okay.
How do we help families? Because I believe if we strengthen the family, we strengthen the parish, we strengthen the diocese. And if we leave the family in a state of collapsing, we leave the parish in a state of collapsing, we leave the diocese in a state of collapsing, because the strength of the church is really in the families.
Right.
And so the schools are made up of families, the parish is made up of families, the diocese is made up of families. So we're making a pivot towards the family and helping the family to find its identity. And in finding its identity, recognizing the difference between a group of people living in a house and a family. And then the difference between a family and a domestic church.
Right.
Because a family is a domestic church. So if the family is praying together, if the family is loving each other, and the domestic church is a community of life and love. And so if the family is a community of life and love, then it is a domestic church. And then it is a first church. And it's a church that gives the child that experience, encounter of God long before you've gone into the big church. You've had it already in your family.
Right.
And that's where we're pivoting, because if we could get families to recognize that they are domestic churches and that mom and dad are the priests of this church, that need to bless the children and help the children understand the way of God, then those children will grow up in a family experience that would nurture them and love them into being and give them a solid identity where they can really be serious and make a serious contribution to the world.
One of the stories I loved, when I loved all of what you shared last interview, but I loved how you bridged the divide between those two gangs. And Trinidad continues to be plagued by them. Have you been able to continue? Have you been able to sort of bring any other groups together? And do you plan to? And stay safe while you're doing it?
So the work I'm doing in Sealots, Sealots is a community where last year we had a major gang war in Sealots and around Sealots. So it is a community like that. So it is engaging the life of the community in all its aspects. And so yes, I'm working with that community now to see what we can do and how we can help the community move forward.
Okay.
And it's important because it's important that communities have a sense of hope and a sense of life. I've seen the community, I've walked it, I've been in it quite a few times, but now we're going into a deeper relationship in the community. So we'll see what stories emerge out of it.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I love Trinidad and I spent a lot of my life there, and it makes me sad when I hear about, the different, I hear from time to time people just being killed senseless. And
Yes.
I'm really hoping that somehow we could change that and turn it back into a safer place.
Yes.
What plans do you have for yourself in the new world beforehand?
In the post-COVID world.
Yes, in the post-COVID world.
So I've been doing some writing, reading, and reflecting. So I have a book that I'm nearly finished pulling together, a book on preaching.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I'm hoping within a month or so I will have that pulled together. I have another one that I'm working on also on the family and the whole mission and ministry of the church to the family. So that one too, I'm working on that one. So I'm working on a couple of things to, just to tease ideas out and to put ideas out into places where people can reflect and act on them. So that's kind of one part of it. So I'm back out kayaking again, thank God. We have no social restriction about using the waterways anymore. And kayaking is the way I enjoy myself the most. When I want to be in nature, give me some water and a kayak, and I'm absolutely happy. So I'm doing that also, and I'm reading and reflecting and just really trying to find where God is and what God is saying to his people.
I'm so happy you're keeping that open door with him, that open window, so you can
absolutely
hear his voice, because he's very needed in this world right now.
Absolutely.
People are so lost. We have like no semblance of normalcy. Some days I wake up and I'm like, well, I used to do this. Oh, but I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so many people are stumbling around, and I think it could be.
And it's so important.
Yes.
To have a center.
Yes.
A center from which everything holds. And I think that's what COVID has helped people to recognize. They've been living their life without any center. And now that's becoming a problem because there's nothing holding everything together.
Absolutely. What message do you want to leave for everybody watching this in the US, wherever, because a lot of people watched our last interview. What do you want to leave with them, regardless of where they live, and in light of racism and COVID and all the craziness happening simultaneously that we are all being subjected to dealing with? What do you want to say to them?
When in Israel walked away from God and went to idolatry, the next thing that Israel did was they forgot about the poor. The next thing that they did was they started to oppress the poor. And then God would send prophets, and the next thing Israel would do would be reject the prophets and then kill the prophets because they didn't want to hear the truth. And then Israel would end in a catastrophe because of their rejection of God, the poor, and the prophets. And we're living in a time where we have really rejected God. And we put all kinds of idols in the place that God should be. We are forgotten about the poor. And a lot of our wealth is being squandered. And people don't have basic human needs. Any country that has the kind of wealth that America or Trinidad has is a country that should be taking far more responsibility for those on the fringe. And we don't want to hear it because it challenges our lifestyle. But we have to hear it, that the rejection of God, the putting God on the fringe, what that really means is we start bringing in crazy and weird ideas to the center that make no sense and cannot hold. Because the truth is the human cannot live without God at the center. And if we don't have the living God at our center, we're going to put any construction of God we have. And so we're putting all kinds of things at the center that really don't allow real wholeness to emerge. And so I would say to people, step back, take 3 deep breaths, and ask yourself, where is God in your life right now? And have you really put God at the center of your life? Or have you had this token relationship with God, but really your life doesn't revolve around God? You have to think of God as the sun and our lives as the planets. And the planets revolve around the sun, not the other way around. And we think of us as the sun and God as the planets revolving around us. That's just that. Anybody who believes that is delusional. And coming back to the reality of who God is and who we are, that's how we're going to come back to a much happier life, living, and a much better way of relating and sharing life.
But Archbishop, so many people blame God for COVID. Everything that goes wrong in the world, God gets blamed for. It's like, why is God allowing this virus? Why did God allow my child to die? So they don't see God as the source you go to in these times. In fact, they question and blame him at these times. What would you like to say to those people that subscribe to this philosophy and this way of living?
It's easy to blame God for everything. But so if you take your child dying, have you ever considered what it must have been like for God to stand by and see his child being murdered brutally by people? Have you ever considered what that would have been like for God?
Mm-hmm.
And why did he stand by and do nothing? Because he's given us free will. That's why. We've been given free will, and we use our free will badly and good, depending on how we do it. So a lot of things that we're blaming God for are things that we should have taken responsibility to do and to do better. And in our irresponsibility, bad things have happened, and then we turn around and blame God.
Mm-hmm.
But what did we have responsibility for? And how do we know what is best anyhow? To blame God is to assume that I actually know more and better than God. And that this person's death, which we call untimely, how do we know it was untimely? Do we have a master plan that's bigger than the master plan that God has? Do we have a peek into reality that is bigger than God's peek into reality? It's our arrogance that makes us believe that we know better than God. And therefore, whatever has happened, we blame God for it because what he really should have done is this, which means that I actually know better than God. And that's why I'm angry with God, because I am the arrogant one that believes I am actually bigger, better, better than God. And if God would listen to me, the world would be great. And that is the biggest dose of egoism I've ever heard in my life.
But it's out there, and a lot of it is out there. I'm sure you've heard some of it.
The first sin is pride. The first sin is pride. Pride comes before the fall. The first sin is pride. And that first sin of pride is what is stopping people from really seeing who God is. Because we believe that we really know better than God. Well, that's pride. That's just pride.
It is. And you know, the time with you flies by like it has wings.
Ah, boy.
Time is up, and I am sad because I've really enjoyed this time with you once more. But I'm not going to go unless I have you say everything you want to say, because I know a lot of people will watch this. And so we can close out with whatever you want to leave us with now.
Well, what I want to say is we've had a time where we've been put back in our houses to reflect. I pray that people use that very wisely, to really reflect on the deeper meaning of life. And if we have done that, that we actually have a better chance of living a deep life with happiness now than before this virus came and got us. The virus is pernicious, it's crazy, it's causing destruction, we could think of all the negative things about the virus, and that's all true. But the truth is also that it has given us an opportunity for reflection and for making new choices. Let's take the opportunity and use it really, really well.
Archbishop, thank you so very much. I am coming to Trinidad as soon as I can travel, and I'm going with you in that boat when you go out on the water. Because
God bless.
I need a dose of that therapy. God bless you too. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn, when a conversation is all you need to be inspired. And I have no doubt you are going to get tons of inspiration from this segment. And I will see you next time.